Well, to talk about trade, the strategic choices made around that, and the upcoming budget, we're now joined by Liberal strategist Susan Smith, principal and co-founder of Blue Sky Strategy Group, and Conservative strategist Cole Hogan. Hello to both of you.
Hello.
Okay, so here you have Kristen Hillman being grilled about trade talks in Washington. We know those talks were suspended by Donald Trump because of that ad from Ontario, that anti-tariff ad. Let's begin there, because the three of us have not actually talked about it as a group quite yet. Was that ad a strategic error, Susan?
Perhaps in hindsight. It depends who you talk to. There's one story I hear that Doug Ford felt that the way the talks were going weren't going to be beneficial for the auto sector, so he needed and wanted to make a point. It's a bit of wag the dog, look over here, I'm doing something. But perhaps people didn't think through how that might land with the notoriously thin-skinned and mercurial Donald Trump. So I don't think it was a government of Canada strategic error, but I think perhaps the fallout was not as anticipated by Premier Trump, or maybe it was, Premier Ford, or Premier Ford. Or perhaps it was because maybe he didn't like the way things were going.
Okay, I'm going to pick up on that point in a second.
Sure.
But quickly, do you think it was a strategic error, Cole?
No, and I think we've seen some interesting pieces leading up to this. So we saw Doug Ford say that Mark Carney and his chief of staff saw the ad, and then Mark Carney's office in the PMO put out a comment that said we were not involved in the production and distribution of the ad, which of course they weren't. It was a Government of Ontario ad, but it did admit the fact of that they likely did see these ads, the Prime Minister and the chief of staff. Then after that, we saw Mark Carney say that negotiations with the U.S. were going well up until this ad hit the airwaves. Ambassador Hillman backed him up on that and said they were, shaping the contours of an agreement. Then the White House said, the negotiations were starting to sour before that. So there's a lot of back and forth here, and it's hard to know who to believe at times in this purposely broken game of telephone. But whatever the approach is for our interactions and negotiations with the states going forward, it can't be this. There can only be one team at the negotiating table, and that's the Prime Minister's jurisdiction and his cabinet. But I think you can see why provinces like Ontario and BC, with their large economies that are very impacted by this trade war, why they want to get their message out there with their ad campaigns.
Yeah, and underline the fact that the side deals that they were talking about progress being made on were steel, aluminum, energy, not to do with softwood lumber, not to do with the auto industry,
right,
as you said. But, picking up now on Cole's point and what you said earlier, you make the distinction that this was Ontario, not a federal. But, based on what we heard from Doug Ford, the Prime Minister did see this ad and did not stop it. So does that create a problem for Mark Carney?
In what world would the Prime Minister of Canada, would any Premier listen to the Prime Minister saying, don't run an ad that you're going to? Would Danielle Smith, would Scott Moe, hopefully David Eby will think twice all by himself. So I don't know what happened in the conversation with the Prime Minister and the Premier on that ad. I think Doug Ford did exactly what Doug Ford wanted to do, and that's what premiers do.
Cole?
Yeah, I think we take Doug Ford at his word that the Prime Minister and his chief of staff definitely saw the ad. I think it was just uncertain what the exact impact would be. And now that we're seeing the aftermath of this, maybe David Eby will reconsider his decision to run an ad from BC down south.
Okay, I do wonder about that, though, because, all indications are from Premier Eby is that he's still going to go forward with his own anti-tariff
Eby's in trouble in BC. So this is a bit of wag the dog, as I said, right? Eby needs to show he's doing something. He's in huge trouble electorally. The economy in BC is in really big trouble. The forestry thing is an additional whack on something that was already floundering. So he may make a localized, personal calculation that he needs to do something to show British Columbians that he's standing up for them. Might be the wrong thing for the country, probably the wrong thing for BC to do, given how President Trump is responding to things. I hope he doesn't go that far, but it could happen.
Is it wrong, though? Because, the Prime Minister has been criticized for not following through enough on his elbows up rhetoric that he came over. Okay, let me finish my question first. The rhetoric that he had during the election campaign. But here you have an ad now that sends a message of elbows up, not from the Premier, not from the Prime Minister, but from Canada. Is there a benefit to have almost like a good cop, bad cop on this messaging so that on the one hand, here's Mark Mark Carney doing the charm offensive with Donald Trump, and the premiers are able to be the conciliaries that he cannot be in this moment in time.
There are times that I think the good cop, bad cop mechanism has been very helpful, and it doesn't mean it won't be helpful in the future. I think it probably, given where discussions were at this moment, maybe it wasn't helpful, but who knows with Trump? Like, really, the guy had essentially a hissy fit, got a hold of his phone and called off the trade negotiations. There's no playbook for that. You have to be able as a country to adjust. I don't know that anybody anticipated the level of the fury of Donald Trump, but I'm told, the ambassador was talking to some folks this week, and he was not dropping F-bombs at Premier Ford's envoy. But basically, it was the petulance of the president that paused things.
Cole?
Yeah, I think we'll have to see a bit of a different approach. I wonder when the next First Ministers meeting is and how that will untangle. I imagine that the discourse will be a little different than the first one was. But I think to Susan's point, David Eby will continue. Whenever he gets a national stage, he will take it. So, him versus Danielle Smith on, a Western-directed pipeline project, he's going to take that opportunity to take a local stand in BC, and he'll do that in regards to trade in these ads as well. So the next time the First Ministers meeting rolls around, I think we'll see a different relationship between the premiers and the feds, and it won't be as kumbaya this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, of course, we'll keep following this. I want to talk about another topic because, of course, next week is the budget, and we heard Andrew Scheer yesterday accuse the Liberals of essentially fashioning a budget that the opposition cannot support. He's accusing the Liberals wanting an election in this moment in time. And add to that, take a look at this Substack. This is from Conservative strategist Fred Delory, who says the Parliament is 5 months old and already circling the drain. The Liberals will table their budget on November the 4th, and it's going to fail, not because of scandal or surprise, but because the math, the momentum, and the mood have all turned. Now, I'll get to whether or not you think this budget will actually pass in a moment, but what is the strategic advantage for the various parties to pull the plug on this Parliament right now?
None. Nobody wants an election. Canadians would be furious if there was an election. If we're making any progress at all with the U.S., this would pause it desperately, and the economy would be reeling, I think, even further without some firm direction and leadership there. I don't know where Pierre Poilievre would run. They don't want him back in Ottawa-Carleton or Nepean-Carleton. I don't know where he would go. The NDP have no leader and no money. The Bloc Québécois, maybe they think they have something to gain from there. And the Liberals, I think, are in a good position where they can continue to follow through on the mandate that Canadians give them. Not a single, well, there may be a few Canadians that want an election, but as a whole, as a country, that's a wrong move, and I don't think any party really stands to gain from it.
Cole, do you think any party has any tactical advantage to call an election right now?
Sure. Let's go party by party here because there's a few things that I'm really watching. In particular, I want to know how Chrystia Freeland votes on this budget, given the fact that she couldn't tolerate Trudeau spending. Will she be able to tolerate Carney spending, or will there be another political salvo on the way out the door? I kind of doubt it, but I'm curious to see how she votes. The Bloc, I think they've made a lot of noise previously when Trudeau was Prime Minister about increased OAS payments, and we've seen those moves from Blanchette and the Bloc Québécois before. I think that they can easily oppose this budget and, say that they're standing up for Quebecers and bolster the Parti Québécois' chances in the next provincial election in 2026. The NDP, I think they need to make more noise than they have been so far. Don Davies and the NDP are wearing the legacy of Jagmeet Singh, where I think a lot of Canadians view the NDP as the junior party to the Liberal Party because of the amount of times that Trudeau supported or was supported by Jagmeet Singh. So here's the thing, too, with the NDP. Don Davies does not have an NDP caucus vote to whip, so he can't tell them which way to vote. And I guarantee that if you are not running for the federal NDP leadership and you're a sitting NDP MP, you might just be voting quietly on your phone.
Okay, so
3 votes is the difference between the Liberals passing this budget and not. Somebody could be out of the country. Someone could have to go to a funeral. Someone might have a stomachache that day and be unable to get to their phone. That Elizabeth May, don't forget Elizabeth May. If Elizabeth May supports the government, you're down to 2 votes. So there is a scenario where people can abstain, be absent, or they secure enough votes for the budget to pass. But I believe this budget will pass.
So when Andrew Scheer says that the Liberals are crafting a budget that the opposition cannot support, what do you take from that?
What else would you expect Andrew Scheer to say? I mean, the guy will say anything. He was out defending Pierre Poilievre in the RCMP comments last week. So Mr. Scheer has his talking points for the day. He's found whatever angle he thinks will make a point. The Conservatives have spent the fall accusing Mark Carney of stealing their ideas, and all of a sudden things are going to be crystallized in a budget, and they can't support that. I think Mr. Scheer talks out of both sides of his mouth.
Cole?
Sure. So I don't think the Conservatives can support this budget in terms of the deficit and the massive spending. I really just don't see the Conservatives voting for it. The Bloc, I don't see them voting for it either. Elizabeth May, to Susan's point, she could easily support this budget, no problem. I think some of the more quiet NDP MPs will be the ones who support the Liberals and prop them up once again.
So that's what we're looking for then, the NDP and where that
I would
goes.
say so, yeah.
Or a head count, right?
Yeah,
You
on
need a head
division?
and a head count too. Right. They could go on division, or there's just not enough. There are three MPs in the opposition who aren't present to vote that day.
For the head
Right.
count.
That's the other thing that can happen too. Okay. And you hope they don't get it wrong like John Crosby did. But I don't think the government's going to fall on the budget.
Okay. Well, we are watching. The budget, of course, is next Tuesday, and then we're going to have a postmortem of it on the Wednesday. But for today, Susan, Cole, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.